Greetings, everyone. Today, our first session is about how to ensure equitable digital access for youth and what it means to have digitally democratic access and environment, especially for youth and young adults. This will give an insightful perspective on how we can ensure equitable digital access for people of all ages and backgrounds. This session will be led by Ruby Guillon, Zen Chu, and Sylvia Flores, all of whom are renowned professionals who have comprehensive backgrounds in technology, data systems, social service, and development. Please.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We're coming to you live from the San Francisco Public Library. Ruby and Sylvia don't know this, but my parents actually met in this library back in the 60s, laughing over, locked books. So this kind of brings everything full circle to me. If you live long enough, you have these moments where you feel like everything has brought you full circle, and so I'm glad to be beaming in from one of my hometowns. I've had a fantastic life. I'm a teacher, but I've been an entrepreneur, and I've founded healthcare companies, and now I get to teach the next generation. But here in San Francisco, right where this library is one of the toughest parts of San Francisco, and it shows the inequities that we have, even in one of America's biggest cities, where we have lots of homeless and drug problems right in the streets outside the main downtown area. My dad died of cancer here. My mom was working a couple of jobs right here in the Tenderloin waiting tables, but then during the day she was working for a self-made entrepreneur, one of the San Francisco's richest entrepreneurs, the founder of the Fairmont. And we lived at the bottom of the hill, and his hotel was at the top of the hill. And we saw the inequities every day as I walked my 4-year-old sister to school. So I think there's a lot to talk about just in your neighborhoods around you. And I'm glad to be sharing some examples from around the world to all of you around the world. So, why should you listen to me? I get to teach doctors and PhDs and MBAs at MIT and UCLA and Harvard Medical School. But I started out from pretty humble beginnings, and now I get to bet on my students, and I get to learn from them. And some of them have built billion-dollar healthcare companies that have helped millions of patients. And so that's really exciting to be part of the change and getting to build the future. So my group, which is my shirt, if you can see it, is Hacking Medicine at MIT. The important thing is it's a student-led group, because it was important to create something that the students really wanted and something that would renew with the energy of the new students that came in every year. And so it's a self-renewing group that's been going for 12 years and has expanded around the world. And we've done events around the world in over 30 countries, over 200 events, putting over 20,000 people through a weekend hackathon process. So we may be coming to your neighborhood and or come to one of ours, and we'll figure out how to include you. But really the core of the process that the students learn and the attendees learn, I call them students, but many are grown adults that have multiple degrees, but we're all lifelong students, right? And they learn to pitch problems, and they learn that the best way to recruit team members and champions and cheerleaders is to pitch those problems. Make sure you're pitching the right problems. Validate that they're real problems that you can solve. And then how do you use technology, in our case, to scale medicine and healthcare? But I think you'll hear from Ruby a fantastic example where those methods work for some of the other complex challenges in society. So you can go farther with teams. A lot of the most fun inventions and problems are at the intersection of different scientific domains. That's where you get the most impactful inventions. And these ideas can infect communities in a good way. And we try to infect as many people with that spirit and have them take it home to their labs and their companies and their schools, and use hackathons to gather people and build communities and ecosystems. And one of the most important things that I teach is how to tell stories in high stakes situations, right? When you're trying to raise millions of dollars, when you're trying to convince someone to leave a safe job and join your crazy startup. You use stories to build, to sell, to persuade, to recruit, and stories are embedded in our memories in a unique way. This is how we've survived and adapted for millions of years, right? We are a collection of our stories. These stories can activate communities. We can use them to motivate ourselves, and you can manufacture luck, right? You can create luck through these stories. I also raised 3 kids who are finding their path, and they are chemical engineers and entrepreneurs, and they're already in startups. And so I get to teach the next generation, and excited to have you maybe learn something from the 3 of us. So, over the weekend, hopefully, as you hear these things, you can start to think about your stories. What's your hero's journey, right? And you can get to practice as you get introduced to other folks. Don't let other folks tell your story, right? So then the question is, are you willing to tell your story? How does it shape you and what you want to do? And are you willing to bet on yourself, right? That's the first thing. When you start betting on yourself and you start getting agency for all that, then others will also come along. You will find them when you're able to tell your story, and especially when you're working on something that's big and aspirational. Even some of the terrible problems that are big, you can turn them into aspirations. And some will see that and see the energy and see the authenticity in you, and they will become investors in you, investors in time, investors in money, and investors in introductions, so that you can figure out who are your champions for you. Now, you've lived through a pandemic. You've seen amazing changes, right? You've seen the Dalai Lama get canceled, right? You're living through amazing times. So what future do you want? This is heavy stuff. It can be heavy stuff. Even right outside this library, there are, crazy lives intersecting, and in really sad ways. There's lots of suffering, and I get to deal with it every day in healthcare and be reminded of death. You all are young and wonderful and may not be thinking of that, but this stuff touches you, and it's important to focus on these issues, whether you're passionate about climate or democracy at risk or gun regulation in the US especially, or healthcare as a right. All of these things are important causes, and the question is, which one will you pick? And I think it's so healthy to see your life as a quest. What game are you playing? Is it for adventure? Is it to create something beautiful, whether it's music or art? Is it to create something that helps other people? I had to adapt fast and quickly as I moved between 13 schools and many states around America, as what felt like being the only Chinese kid in Texas and Virginia, or the outsider in Chinatown, San Francisco. I learned quickly that life was a game that I needed to play on the beaches of Hawaii, where I would sell papers because I needed to bring home some money at age 9 and 10, and contribute it to help pay the rent. So necessity is the mother of invention a lot of times. But I was a musician. I played drums. I then witnessed musicians as I worked at a drum store and worked with a lot of rock stars, and I realized that there was very little connection between talent and success, and I wanted to go somewhere that was a little more guaranteed, because I wanted to claw my way out out of poverty. And so I became an engineer on scholarship, and then got accepted to med school, but didn't go. And that was one of the best decisions of my life, and it could have been a really terrible decision. But the issue, the key thing is, what drives your energy and your curiosity and your purpose. And hopefully you all, including with this event, start to figure that out, figure out what your path is. Because purpose gives meaning to your life, right? Especially when you're in service to something important, something bigger than you, something larger than ourselves, and something that builds empathy and care for others, right? Others that are less fortunate. Because no matter how bad you think your life circumstances are, as soon as you walk into a hospital, or as soon as you really go out into the world, you see others that are even less fortunate, and that it was in a battered women's shelter where we learned, when we saw other kids, that we had it pretty good, even though by a lot of perspectives, people would have been feeling sorry for us. So you have so many choices. You have too many choices, and I'm jealous for all the choices that you have. And there's a lot of bullshit jobs out there that will, go the way of the dinosaur because of new technology and because of these shifts in societies across the world. So go on to the leading edge and learn what changes are happening fast and how to adapt. One of the other lessons I want to tell you is that, looking back, all of my best jobs started by me offering to work for free. And that was part of me betting on myself, betting that they would like to work with me, that they would like the things that I made for them. And that was true of selling papers on the beach in Hawaii, but it was also true of volunteering at the drum store and then getting paid, and eventually running the drum store when I was in high school. It was true for my first startup, which is at MIT, and they gave me the reins as CEO because the startup had already failed. So no one else wanted to take it. They'd already run out of money. And I walked into something and was given more responsibilities than maybe I deserved as a young punk. But that was where I proved myself. That's where I really taught myself and got to learn from some of the greats in stem cell biology at MIT and Harvard Medical School. But it all started by offering to work for free and figure out the hard problems that people were walking away from. In fact, yesterday was the 70th anniversary of Watson and Crick, and my co-founder in that company was Alex Rich, who was 80 years old, 50 years older than me, and had proved Watson and Crick right. So, you can be close to greatness when you're young and still proving yourself by volunteering. Now I get to teach, and I even started volunteering to do that for free, and that's how I turned into a professor at MIT. So learn by doing, jump in, bet on yourself, maximize your learning, and just emphasize continual improvement. Last, just be a citizen of the world. Don't look away from suffering, all right? Don't shy from that. It's important to look at it, take it in, figure out how you can help, or at least figure out how you can empathize with the people in that situation, where it may look on the face of it one way. It may be easy to criticize someone, but you don't know their whole story, and there's so much invisible suffering. But it'll give you perspective on how lucky you are, all right? And especially if you come from privilege, use that privilege and figure out how to help others that haven't had that. And even if you've survived awful things, that perspective will help you bear it and thrive on the other side of it. So those are really the keys to happiness. The research bears that out. the university, it brings me amazing people because of these communities, because of Hacking Medicine. One that I was lucky to meet is who you'll hear from next. And Ruby has just an amazing story. She just won the hackathon at MIT, which was fantastic to see. And it was because she kept going. She's kept going in the face of daunting challenges. And I can't wait to see what she builds. So Ruby, I'll hand it off to you.
Hi, everybody, to everyone around the world. My name's Ruby Guillen. I'm a fatal severe child abuse investigator for LA County. I've been assigned over 7,000 kids. So I'm very familiar with youth, children, toddlers, babies. And so I'm very passionate about children and our youth. So when they asked me to speak, I'm like, okay, this is my avenue, my lane. And so from a technological perspective, I know that everybody has access to technology in some form. I know a lot of you have these things, technology on your hand. And so I always want to look at how do we empower the disenfranchised, marginalized youth? How do we give them a voice? How do we ensure access to information, knowledge? And so I wanted to be in the spaces where technology is as most, there's a little, how would I say this? Because I'm a social worker, from a social worker perspective, there's very little spaces where there's a lot of technology. So then I started looking at all the technological spaces, and I ran into Sylvia Flores, right next to my left, and Zen Chu. Like, these two people are the two people that I need to have in my pocket, because they're going to teach me, lead me, show me where I need to go to empower the disenfranchised youth, provide technological services and empower them, give them a voice. So Sylvia over here, here she is representing women of color, people of color, and she talks about the importance of bringing the marginalized people to the front. And it's really, really important to build those connections of people that are disenfranchised through the lens of technology. And from Zen's perspective, I went to MIT because I knew when you hear MIT, it's like the golden ring right next to Harvard. And so I'm like, oh my God, and I saw it so far away. I'm like, I don't belong there because it's too far away. It's the golden ring. Can I go in that space and where they welcome me? I'm a woman of color. I'm a social worker. What in the heck am I doing at MIT Harvard? Do I really belong in that space? So what the heck, I'm going to go. So I ended up going, and I met you, and you were so welcoming. And you asked me, what's my shtick? And I said, my shtick is I want to empower youth. I want to create this avenue where we build this collective and empower people with their voice using tech. And so I went the first year, we didn't do so well. We came back the second year on your invite. I went with the application process, and we ended up winning first place.
Yeah.
Yeah, social worker.
So and why don't you tell them what you're building? What was the problem as you see it?
Well, like I said, I'm a first responder, and as a first responder, in the middle of the night, weekends, holidays, there's 88 cities in LA County, right? Government offices are only open 8 to 5, but the children are at school, so you're not going to see the violence because they're not even home with the perpetrators. But they're home and perpetrators after 5, 6, but everything's closed. So my office where I work is the only office that's open. And so we get these calls middle of the night in the holidays, weekends, and so I get referrals, and there's, I could be anywhere in 88 cities. Right? So I'm very aware of poverty. I'm very aware of violence and in a granular sense because I deal with fatalities. I deal with severe trauma, and I'm literally at the bedside of hotly where I'm literally seeing the children die because they've been beaten so bad. So, but then from the perspective of the response, it's not just child welfare. You see the medical personnel. Sometimes you see DMH, Department of Mental Health, because you have suicidality and homicidal. You see the fire, and then you see the EMT, police, and that's just not one police officer. You see a quadrille of police officers and detectives, and some see the coroners, and we're all responding to the same family. We don't talk with each other, as we should. We don't share data as we should. So here I am. One night I decided, okay, I'm going to look at this fatalities perspective from a digital perspective, because I was thinking about you. What if the hackathon? Okay, if I'm going to build something in relation to what I've learned from you, because I literally was paying attention to what you're saying, really, really impactful. Like, okay, so I'm in this field, and I'm looking at this baby that died. Literally,
And filling out paper forms, right?
Right. And then I went back to the office. It was 3 a.m. You could hear crickets. I took all the reports from all these different parties, and I looked at all the reports and what the information they're collecting, pretty much the same thing. But yet I'm working, till 6, 7 in the morning. I go home, I'm going to turn around and be in the office at 4 to write the report. Now, there's no way I'm going to collect everybody's verbal testimony, because I can't. It's humanly impossible. But then you want me to write a comprehensive analysis of what really took place. How can I? But then I can imagine what the police officers are trying to do, because they have to write the comprehensive report to go to the DA. So now because of this work, it crystallized why these reports are falling through the cracks. Because we don't have a comprehensive mechanism to understand risk at the granular source, and then promote that in such a way that we do something about it. Right.
And digital is a perfect way to kind of bring the right information from disparate sources together.
Right. And so I learned a lot from you. And I mean, I honestly give you the credit, because yeah, I do the work, but your hackathon and being in the space at MIT and Harvard, a space that I never thought in a million years I was welcome. I'm being serious.
Well, the great thing is, as opposed to Harvard, which charges for everything,
Right.
MIT tries to give everything away for free as much as possible and be a big tent. And, what I love most, I'm more loyal to MIT than any of the mediocre schools that I went to.
Right.
And it's because of that spirit of making it, inventing it, giving it away for free if you can, teaching the world through edX, so that if you have an internet connection in Uganda, you can take the same classes, you can teach yourself, right? And then, for MIT undergrads, for those of you thinking about college, MIT tracks and is a priority of bringing in first in their family to go to college, right? They track that as a percentage, and they're approaching a quarter of the students that come to MIT are first in their family to go to college. And that's important because not only can MIT change the life of one person, but you can change the trajectory of whole families. And it's a beautiful thing. And you don't start with technology. Technology isn't everything, but if you can solve problems with technology, oftentimes it becomes a very scalable solution, right? And so that is what we infected Ruby with the spirit of. And now she's gone on and created a company, a wonderful company that I'm excited to, keep cheering on, that can really change things, not just in LA County, right? Not just in California, but she's got aspirations, not just for the US, but around the world, because there are a lot of things. I describe healthcare as, you've got these truths in healthcare, right? That disease and a particular cure and a particular diagnosis. And then the gaps are different depending on the different countries, right? Not all countries have the same drugs or the diagnostic tests or the healthcare infrastructure. So it's all local, just like social work. It's all hyper local. And yet we can have some digital tools that can be superior than paper-based or informal, that can then protect children and patients and improve healthcare and improve other really complex challenges.
So I want to introduce you to Sylvia. Sylvia's a mentor of mine as well. And she's actually the one that introduced me to the tech space in 2014. I was 15, and you said, well, Ruby, you believe in tech? Let me introduce you to Google. Let me introduce you to these other environments. And I'm like, I was so green. I'm like, wow, I was so blown away. And you said, come on, let me show you this other space. And I want to thank you for showing me how profound technology is as a voice.
Yeah,
So go for it.
Well, I'd like to say hello to all the young people watching our talk today. It's an honor to be here and to give you a little perspective of my world. So my name is Sylvia Flores. I was born and raised in San Jose, California, which is about 45 miles south of San Francisco. San Jose, back in the day when I was born, like my grandparents and my parents have told us, it was a agriculture town. So it was a lot of farming, many Latino families settled there and worked in the farms and worked in the canneries. In fact, my mother worked in the cannery. And so I grew up with seeing cherry trees, apricots, berries, you name it, every single vegetable and fruit, we were growing it there. I ended up going to San Jose State. I have my degree in chemical engineering. I was the first engineer of my family. I loved cooking, so when I was in PChem or organic chemistry, I really wanted to go and pursue making perfumes and cosmetics. But I changed. One of my professors at the university introduced me to the Department of Chemical Engineering, and that's where I was accepted, and I ended up graduating as a chemie. From there, I went to go work for IBM, and I traveled all over the world in a corporate environmental engineer, which was amazing experience for me. I got to work with the most famous scientists in the world, and gave me tons of advice, and were actually my mentors in my career. I ended up leaving IBM. That was my first job right out of college, and I ended up starting my own company, and I'm going to tell you why. Working at IBM, I was recruited to be in a team of engineers that were supporting startups in Silicon Valley. And I was going to many events where young people were starting companies and buying servers from IBM. We were the support team. And I would go to all these events, and I was the only Latina in the room. And I was like, wait a minute, something's wrong here. And I started noticing, I was like, wait, why am I not seeing people like me? And nobody of color. And they were just amazingly growing these companies, building these companies, and just being millionaires overnight. And these are all young people. And I thought, something's really wrong here. And so after doing my research, I started noticing that a lot of the Latino business owners were not online. So I decided to leave IBM with my own money. I didn't have mentors. I didn't have angel investors. I had nobody. I just recruited my friends that also left high-tech companies, and we started a company. I was the CEO, had it for about 3 years. We put online many companies that were all Latino driven. And right now, if you look at the buying power just in the United States, just to give you perspective, it's in the trillions of dollars. The population of Latinos in the United States is larger than the population of Canada. It's enormous. So you could just imagine how I was able to grow the company. I learned a lot. I made a lot of mistakes. And I landed some big clients, a lot of movie stars. It was an amazing ride. I ended up getting an offer for a company in Los Angeles that wanted to buy the company, so I sold it. And then I went to I ended up being a consultant for the president of Mexico to start an incubator program in the United States for Mexican nationals and Mexican Americans in Silicon Valley. You have incubators from all over the world, and I presented that idea, and he ended up at the time funding that program. From there, I went to go work for, I was a consultant for a lot of venture capital people, firms, and then I ended up starting Manos Accelerator. And that was in 2013 with the idea of helping Latino young people have guidance as if they wanted to start a company and know the ins and outs before they even get on this ride. It is literally like a roller coaster. So you buckle up. It is very challenging. And so basically doing my research, talking to people at Y Combinator, 500 startups, we did so much research. We were just, myself and my co-founder were just like, thought about this idea one day and just working from his kitchen table, like under the just kind of like in a how can I say this? We were just not out yet, so we were just doing a lot of research.
We're being scrappy.
Yeah, we're being scrappy. There you go. And I thought, from my experience so far, what I learned just having my own company was you need funding. Like, if you don't have funding, you're literally like almost going to be dying off. Like, you're not going to really make it. So all those young people out there, always remember, believe in yourself, be persistent, have patience, how can I say this? Always aim for the moon. You'll probably get a start. So basically what happened was from there, we started doing the research of how many Latinos were getting funded in Silicon Valley, startups. And it was very sad. It was less than 1%. Wow. So at that point we say, no, we want to do this because we want to change that number. It really means a lot to us. We were very aligned on our personal beliefs. And so we both thought, okay, well, why don't we do this? I started calling some of my Hollywood friends to back us up because people are going to go crazy and say, what are these Latinos doing? Like, who's going to go and support them, right? So anyways, we recruited some very famous people. You could go to my website one day and you could go see who it is. But anyways, from there,
Really, you're going to leave us hanging with that?
I'll tell you then. So from there, we ended up launching the company, and it was just by pure luck. My co-founder knew somebody at Google Ventures, and first, he thought he was calling one of his companies that he tried to start, and they were like not interested. And he's like, no, not doing that. I'm actually starting an accelerator, and they're like, really? Tell us more about that. So we ended up having a meeting at that time with Mary Grove, who was running Google for Entrepreneurs at Google, and had several interviews with us, and basically said, you know what, I really like what you guys are doing. You're probably the first Latino accelerator that we know of in the country, if you get this going. So they made us a partner in 2013. And they launched us, and I was very, very nervous. I was like, wait a minute, we need to raise a fund. We need to start investing in these startups. We're not just going to have an accelerator. And they're like, no, don't worry about it. We're going to take care of that. We're going to help you guys. And I was like, wow. And it was the most, I'll never forget this rest of my life. It was just the most amazing journey and training that Google gave us. I mean, they really walked their talk. And we met amazing people in the organization across the board. They introduced us to, the biggest VCs in town. We've never had those meetings. So
one collision, became multiple collisions, and became a magnet for creating the right cross-pollination with you and other groups as you really brought a mission from Silicon Valley to the communities that you care about, right? And to the countries outside of Silicon Valley. Everyone wants to be the next Silicon Valley. It's important to, right? Everyone's realizing that they need to spur these high-paying jobs and, world-changing startups, right? But how do you do it? And how can you cross-pollinate with Silicon Valley? Well, part of the, thing that you can do even as a kid is figure out, your connections in to folks that know the other folks, right? It's human to human.
Absolutely.
That's why I got this friend and this friend.
Yeah, so let's fast forward to 2023. It's over 185 companies have been through our accelerator. We have probably maybe over 20 times reinvented ourselves. We changed as Silicon Valley changes. We see amazing companies from all over the United States, Latin America. What I love about these startups is you get to see all these great ideas of people building technology that you would never ever thought it would come to life. And you're like, wow, it's just every day, it's just like energy to me of seeing all this building and growing and making our country very so advanced in technology, all these young people coming here that we could help them connect them to the networks that they don't have in their countries. And when they get here, their whole mindset just changes. They go back very different. They don't come back very different. They go back a very different mindset. And then helping grow their ecosystems in their countries. So it's very rewarding. It's very, very inspirational for me to help Like, so Ruby here has been like one of our superstars. I had
Not surprised.
a meetup in Los Angeles where we have different meetups across the country to start looking at startups, to invite them to the accelerator, and that's where I met Ruby, and I had her come and pitch us. So I would invite startups from the audience at our networks to come and pitch with no pitch deck, just come and introduce yourself.
Right, no,
Right.
actually, to be
Telling
honest,
the story of your startup.
Well,
Exactly.
what really happened is you had your event, I saw it online,
Uh-huh.
and I said, well, this is interesting. I want to know the ecosystem, right? I was determined to figure it out. So I went to your event, everyone pitched, and you had like 30 minutes left over of time. So you asked the audience, who wants to pitch? Just come up to the mic. So I went up to the mic and I pitched. And then you said, I need to speak with you. And we
Yeah.
became friends after that.
Yeah, we would give up our watches, Apple Watches, to the best presenter. So we would do competitions. I mean, it's so inspiring to me to see all these different Latino startups from different parts of the country and the world to come in and trust us to help them. And then, in the journey that they're going through, that we kind of guide them, give them advice that they can make wise decisions, and then to see them grow and then generate wealth for generations. And to me, that creates jobs, it creates wealth, and it just changes the world in a positive way. And for me, it's been very inspirational to see
Well
that.
said, well said. So it looks like we've got about 5 minutes left. I'm actually able to see the chat stream on the back. So if you all have questions for us, let us know and I'll pull from them. But put them in the chat. So why don't I ask you what do you think the problems that the youth should be focusing on? Where do they find them? Where have you seen the most interesting problems kind of come from that are then solvable?
Are you talking about founders?
Founders and the startups that you see.
I think it's personal, what they have experienced that they want to change in the world. I
Yeah.
think those where I've seen most of the problem, solving big problems or problems that affect society,
When they have lived
where
experience
they
with
have
it?
lived experience, exactly,
Yeah,
that has affected them profoundly, and they want
Right.
to they want to change.
right. Either because of anger, because of being fed up with witnessing something over and over again.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's so powerful. How about you, Ruby?
Well, yeah, I think lived experience is very profound because I go to these tech spaces and a lot of folks try to create technologies without even understanding the climate. I went to this hackathon in San Francisco. A group of engineers from Facebook and Google got together and hacked the Alexa for the homeless hackathon. And they thought having the Alexa would be a great tool for the homeless.
Great idea.
But the thing is, when I go to these hackathons, go to these tech events, I see that a lot.
Yeah.
So if you have the lived experience, you'll be able to talk from a really personal perspective and bring that to the table.
Right. And know what won't work and what is unrealistic because the reality is on the ground, right? And it's, again, not looking away, but actually being curious about those problems and how you can overcome some of them, with simpler solutions.
Yeah, and I think I want to say something that's really profound for me, and I always tell this to the startups that come to our accelerator. So don't be afraid to fail, because you get up and you start over again, and you learn from those mistakes, like how I did. And nothing's perfect in the world. And it's funny because in other countries, when startups fail, they ban them, they look bad and down on them.
Right, there's a culture that really has a stigma against failure.
Exactly, and here it's the opposite. It's like investors are like, wow, you had 3 startups, wow, I really like that. And
failure is not fun.
It's not.
But it can be one of the best learning tools.
It is,
And you have to be fearless. You have to, and you develop that fearlessness by starting and doing at a young age, as young as possible.
And I love to see the tenacity that these startups have, because they're young and they're not scared, and they have so much believe in themselves. And you know, a lot of investors tell me, like, some of your startups are, I could tell, are very timid, or they just don't have the confidence. And that's the number one thing when I tell them, when I teach them how to tell their story, is that you go up on that stage, you own it, you deserve to be there and tell the world the greatest thing that you're inventing and building that's going to save the world. When you tell them that story, they're going to go, oh my goodness, when can I talk to you? But when you go up there and you're scared, or if you don't feel comfortable in your own skin, or you really don't believe in what you're building, it's not for you. You have to have that tenacity in yourself, and to have the perseverance to stay with it and see it.
Right, right. And I think what's magical is when, and I'm sure you're like this with your founders, when you're coaching them and you can give them confidence, right? You can build their confidence, or you can give them protection, right? And it's maybe psychological protection or a safe space, but it allows them to be fearless. And giving that to someone, there's no other feeling like it, right?
Exactly. And I also, another big advice I could give today is the more you learn, the more you earn. So always start reading. I mean, look at the technologies out there, like, you know, all the AI stuff that's coming out. I mean, wow. Now you're going to go faster. Now you could learn things overnight in 10 minutes. I mean, it's crazy. That is the number one leg that you would have over, is the more you learn, the more you earn.
Fantastic. Yeah, we had the latest hackathon at MIT this past weekend was attendees from over 30 countries. And we asked how many had not used GPT and ChatGPT, and no one raised their hand. Everyone had tried it and used it, right?
So
Just the latest technology that you can start to leverage.
well, we have like 2 minutes left, so any parting words? 1 sentence?
I'll let you sum it up, Ruby. You're the one who brought us together.
I brought you guys together because you guys are my mentors. You guys provide inspiration to me. Both of you do. I mean, you guys are both profound in my life. If it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. And I sincerely
You
say
would
that.
be. You would be.
Not from a
You
technological
absolutely
perspective.
would be.
Not from a
No, because you have that conviction, and you know the beauty of lived experience, the beauty of decades of experience in social work is you know the problem you're solving, you know the solution that you need to create. So Ruby has the unfair advantage of not having to ask other people what they want, because she knows what they need. And that is what you look for as an investor, that someone really has a unique insight.
Well, thank you. So I want to, again, thank you guys for showing up, coming here to the table with me, and thank you for talking to the youth around the world. I hope that you guys, listen to these folks and take away their knowledge and wisdom and take it home to your country, to your hometown, community, family, and interpersonal self.
Yeah, and start today.
Okay? Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Well, I just want to actually come into the picture because I am
Yay,
so
Jessica.
amazed by the entire panel here. I just want to say that as we face various challenges that can no longer be ignored, because we have to move forward, we have to find sustainable solutions to achieve that sustainable pathway. And we have to understand how we best apply our talents in the fields that we focus in. So thank you so much for letting us know of your experiences, your lived experiences, and encouraging all you young adults and people of all ages to strive for the best, to get involved in the community, to use community service as a way to promote for the better good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having
Thank
us.
you.